Greetings, fellow RotoBallers. It is time. It is week 13. It's time for our starts and sits. And Dave, I'm going to go first with my QB start of the week. Now, this guy came into week 12 as the number 13 quarterback in fantasy, but Herbert So Good is back. Justin Herbert versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Look, they gave up the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. 8 games with at least 19 plus fantasy points. And Herbert, since they got healthier at wide receiver, averaging 306 passing yards, 6 touchdowns over his last 2 games. And in week 1, 279 passing yards, 3 touchdowns against the Raiders. Start him up.
Okay, my quarterback sit, Joey, is going to be the elephant that's been in the room for 13 weeks, Deshaun Watson, okay? And I'm
creepy elephant.
I'm going to say up top, Joey, I thought about making jokes, but I want you to know that I'm strictly about football. I will not do it. Now, this may seem like a juicy revenge game, but Watson has a lot working against him. Number 1, Houston actually giving up the second least adjusted fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Number 2, the dude hasn't practiced with the team all season long. Number 3, hasn't played football in 700 days. 700. And number 4, and not least, Texans are very bad versus the run, and the Browns just so happen to have one of the best rushers in the NFL to ride all game long. So what am I saying, Joey? I'm saying starting Deshaun Watson will not leave you with a happy ending. Oh, I said I wouldn't, and I did.
Don't start the elephant in week 13. Let's move over to tight end starts of the week. I'm going stack lunch, Dave. If Justin Herbert is back, that means Gerald Everett does a great play against those Las Vegas Raiders, who are allowing the 7th most fantasy points to tight ends this year. 7 different tight ends with 7 plus fantasy points against them. Gerald Everett averaging 5.9 targets a game and 54 yards and a touchdown against them in week 1. Gerald Everett, rock and roll again. Start him up.
All right, my tight end sit, Joey. It's actually a laundry list of guys who have floated in and out of people's lineups all season long. But I say whether the matchup is juicy or not, too much risk this close to playoffs. I'm saying sit Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry, Noah Fant, Robert Tonyan, and just about anyone else that fits the description about 4 for 40 yards. I feel like I say it every week, Joe, but yeah, let's just get rid of this position in fantasy football. Moving on to greener pastures, wide receivers. You're going to like my start, Joey, because this dude is QB proof and an absolute baller. Garrett Wilson. All aboard the great white hype train, baby. Mike White and Garrett Wilson just shredded our awful Bears defense. And look, yes, everyone's saying, yeah, it was the Bears. They're awful. But guess what? The Vikings secondary is actually worse statistically. After the last few weeks, the Vikings now give up the most adjusted fantasy points to wide receivers. And I think Garrett Wilson is this year's Amon-Ra St. Brown. You can ride him each and every week to the playoffs and beyond.
I love that pick, Dave. Let's hop over to wide receiver sits in week 13. Now you're saying to yourself, Allen Robinson out, Cooper Kupp on the shelf. Someone's got to get the targets. Someone's got to get the yards. I say nay. Do not start any Rams wide receiver this week against the Seattle Seahawks because they're actually allowing the 7th fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers this year. They have allowed not one 100-yard receiving game to a single receiver since week 1. And look, who's it going to be? Skoranek with 12 targets? I say nay. Don't start any of them. Sit Rams wide receivers.
Joey, it's time to rag on our Bears just a little more. I'm saying start all of the Green Bay running backs first, our beloved Bears. Aaron Jones, the guy always destroys us. He just dropped 31 fantasy points on his back in week 2, and he's coming off a 13 target in 3 games. And we're so bad at stopping the run, I think in a pinch, you absolutely can start A.J. Dillon, who has also had 64 rush yards in 2 out of his last 3 games. He finally found the end zone last week. I think whether it's Rodgers, Jordan under center, you gotta love the Packers running backs.
Let's wrap it up with our running back sit of the week in week 13. Now, this guy, he is now the lead back in a backfield, but it's Latavius Murray, who's on what team? Oh, yeah, the Denver Broncos. They're going up against the Baltimore Ravens this week. Look, the Baltimore Ravens, 7th fewest to opposing running backs and also have allowed only 6 rushing touchdowns all season. Their highest to a particular running back for rushing yards is 91. Is Latavius Murray getting that? Is the Denver Broncos going to get 91 total yards offense as a team? I say I doubt it. So sit Latavius Murray. Do not be tempted. Now, everyone take a big, deep breath because here's our 60-second Week 13 start, sit, recap starting right now. Here are our starts and sits in week 13. Justin Herbert. Herbert's so good. He is back. Play him up and fire him up against the Raiders. And also stack lunch. Gerald Everett on the Chargers too as well. Play him against those Raiders. He's a green light too as well. Look, it hurts my heart, but the Bears defense is terrible. Any Green Bay Packer running back this week with possibly Jordan Love under center or a bad Aaron Rodgers, you got to start them up too as well. And Garrett Wilson and Mike White, they're making beautiful music. Keep the jams pumping. Garrett Wilson, easy start in week 13.
And you're leaving all these players on your bench. Deshaun Watson will will leave you without a happy ending in your lineup this week. At tight end, sit all those mediocre dudes. Gesicki, Hunter Henry, Noah Fant, Robert Tonyan. Leave them out. You can also leave any and all Rams wide receivers on the bench because surprisingly, Seattle's defense is actually pretty good versus the pass. And finally, Latavius Murray is a running back on the worst offense in football, so just don't do it. But what you should do is like, subscribe, and go win that league, everybody. Deuces.
See ya.